Lynchler. I am the director of the Tamar Golan Africa Center at Ben-Gurion University and the director of the African Studies program. And it's a real pleasure to see everybody here. Some of you I see are return visitors from last week's webinar, and we're really pleased to have the new group of people who are interested in our new MA program. I'm going to start and just give a presentation here about the program, tell you a little bit about the vision of the program, the actual structure of the program, its content. Then we'll talk about acceptance requirements, the process of registering and applying. And then we'll obviously talk about costs and scholarship opportunities. And then at the end, there'll be plenty of time for questions for anybody that has any kind of questions. So in the meanwhile, it would be great if you could all put your email into the chat there for us. And so that we'll have a way to contact you afterwards. And any questions you have along the way, you can just put them into the chat. I want to introduce Noga Dagan Buzaglo. She's on my screen at the top left corner. I don't know where she is on your screen, but Noga is going to be the coordinator of the projects that will be an integral part of the degree, and we'll talk about that soon. And so she's obviously able to answer any kind of questions you might have. And so you can put those into the chat, and then I'd appreciate it if we didn't have any vocal questions until the end of the presentation. And then if there's anything that I haven't explained properly or is misunderstood, then obviously we can open up to a discussion afterwards. Okay, so a little bit about the new MA program in the African Studies Department at Ben-Gurion University, the track known as African Sustainable Communities. So this program is actually a dream for us in African Studies at Ben-Gurion University. We feel that there's a real pressing need in African Studies to try to combine between, on the one hand, the body of knowledge that has grown in the past 50, 60 years in African Studies, that teach us a lot about history, culture, politics in various contexts across the continent of Africa, and critical development studies that looks a lot more generally at the ways that development should be practiced and realized. And that also is a body of knowledge that's grown over the past 50, 60 years and changed in very fundamental ways, and has brought us to a state when we currently feel that we have lots of really helpful and important knowledge about how it is to plan for the future, how to plan for the future in a way that's sustainable, in a way that ensures both meeting the needs of communities and success over the long term. So in our program, the vision is that the very sort of more general universal understandings of critical development studies have taught us that the local context is vital to understand. And that without understanding the local context, be it history, culture, social dynamics, religion, ideology, art, without understanding all of the many complexities that make up a local context, and without development planners and practitioners engaging very specifically with that local context, then we're really kind of missing the boat on best practice in development, practice and policy and implementation and study. So the idea behind our program is that sustainability, if we're going to really study and understand how to reach and achieve sustainability, it means engaging very specifically with communities which we're targeting for our projects. And those communities we're defining in our program in a very broad way. We're looking at it multidisciplinarily, okay? And we're actually really hoping that by October, we're going to have a very diverse group of students sitting around the table. And we're hoping that that very diverse group of students will each bring their own specific professional, academic, personal interests and careers and experience. And each one of us will contribute to a really broad and holistic view of what it means to engage in the future in a way that will be sustainable. So for some of the people coming to our program, there might be an interest in agriculture. Others might be interested in culture. Others might be interested in politics. Others might be interested in art. Others might be interested in religion. Each person that comes to the program will bring with them their own specific professional interests. And the program will offer not only a very engaged discussion throughout the year about development studies and theory and practice and what is sustainability and how do we measure it and how do we achieve it, how do we evaluate it, how do we plan for it, and at the same time looking at courses in history, politics, sociology, economics, development studies, cultural studies, gender studies, global health, okay? So we're really trying to say that the vision of our program is a multidisciplinary program that thinks that the future can be planned for adequately with a very broad view. Who are the people that will come to our program? Well, first of all, in a very dry sort of nuts and bolts view of it, it'll be students that have completed a bachelor degree at a university with at least an 80 grade point average. Now, I know that a lot of you have done degrees in universities and institutions and have a whole bunch of different ways of evaluating students. And so we'll do our best to work with each one of you to translate your BA and your transcript into a way that we can sort of evaluate your ability to meet our entry requirements, okay? Because we understand that various degrees have various grading systems. So that's the benchmark for us using the Israeli academic institutions. It would be an 80, okay, in your BA. But again, we're working with students on translating their specific transcripts into something that helps us to evaluate and compare. So the graduates of our program will go on to the next stage in their professional academic careers with a very broad view of what it means to achieve sustainable development. They will have not only enjoyed an entire year of engagement, intellectual engagement and critical thinking and sharing and planning together for their projects, but during the third semester of the program, they'll actually have the opportunity to go and apply that knowledge in the project of their own. And that will enable them to come to their next career or academic or professional opportunity with both intellectual tools and practical experience. And that can be applied in any field that you're coming from and that you're going to return back to. So the degree that you'll get, actually written on the degree, will be a degree in African Studies, but the track that we're offering now is the track in African Sustainable Communities. Okay, so that's the overall degree, but the track is going to be one that is called African Sustainable Communities. So why study with us? Well, first of all, I think our program actually represents the way of the future. I think it's a very unique opportunity to actually be engaged in some really cutting edge ways of thinking about planning and implementing development and sustainability. And as I said, this multidisciplinary approach is rare, and it also includes a practical hands-on stint in a local community, which is also a very rare and important both opportunity to see how well those theoretical ideas served you, but it's also good for your CV and for your next opportunity wherever you're going on to. So this multidisciplinary and critical thinking approach and atmosphere will be one that I think will enrich all of us, the students, and also us, the faculty that are going to be studying with you. So we're also really looking forward to the opportunity to get around that table. And Ben-Gurion University has an international reputation for both African studies and critical development studies, sustainable development studies, desert studies, environmental studies, geography, the social sciences, humanities, global health. People that come to our university will be able to enjoy the status that we've achieved over the years in all of those fields. So how does the program look? Now, I mean, the next two screens are very dense with a lot of information, and obviously it's a lot to take in. So I'll just sort of explain that there's both a research track for those who are interested in writing a master's thesis, and there's an applied track for people that are less interested in writing a master's thesis and just want to come and study the degree for more professional or practical reasons, and less interested in a more in-depth and expansive research project, okay? So for each of the tracks, there's a set of required classes, and everybody takes those required classes, whether you're in the research track or the applied track, okay? And the classes that are in the research track, and this is all subject to some tweaking, okay? So there might be a few changes here and there, but the required courses are research methods, which is a qualitative research approach, perhaps with a little bit of dabbling in quantitative, but mostly it's qualitative approaches. And then there'll be a course that engages with the history of post-colonial Africa, in all of its complexity. So looking at nation building and economic development and the economic crises, political crises, looking at the era of neoliberal structural adjustment, looking at the implications of that over time, looking at the growth of cities, looking at the impact of gender on how local populations experience the various changes, and trying to understand in a very broad way what have been the main sort of historical, political, social, cultural trends that are necessary for anybody who's going to then take the next step and work with the local community to understand, you know, where are people coming from? What are their experiences that build their worldviews and their expectations? There'll also, of course, be a class in international critical development studies, looking at both theory and critical engagement with practice and change over time in the field of development. And there'll also be an intensive 4-day class at a 4-day course at the Arava Institute in the Negev Desert, which would enable people to see hands-on a lot of what we're talking about in a theoretical way, seeing hands-on in Israel, one of the more remarkable attempts at achieving sustainable development and learning and studying all about it. There'll also be a class in economic history, and then there'll of course be a 4-credit long, year-long project workshop, which will combine both individual progress, working to develop a literature review and a proposal for a project on the one hand, and on the other hand, learning from a lot of different communities in Israel, in the Negev and in Palestine, engaging with how various community actors and organizations have tried to meet their community needs. We're going to focus a lot on the Negev and all the various things that have been going on in the Negev with communities that face many, many challenges. And that will also be part of the project workshop. And then there will be, there's required classes that are in a whole module known as Cultural Society and Change. And from this module, there'll be an opportunity to take classes in various different aspects of either culture or sociology, anthropology, and everyone will be able to have a little bit more room to choose which class they want there, and I'll get to those options later. And so if you're in the thesis track, then you'll also have, on top of that, 4 elective classes you can take from anywhere in the university, in classes that are of interest to you. And if you're in the applied track, then you'll actually have 10 credits of electives to take. After that, everyone will spend a 3rd semester. So at the end of that first year, the people in the research track will have acquired 22 credits, and the people in the applied track will have acquired 28 credits, okay? The 3rd semester, which takes place in a local community, in Africa, for those who are in the African Studies track, we're also developing a track, hopefully, for students that are interested in working in Palestine. So the different tracks will enable people to go and actually implement their project or whatever their research project is, or their practical project in the local community. That 3-month stint is worth 6 credits. And then at the end of that, there'll either be a project report for 2 credits for those in the applied track, or a thesis that will take the entire next semester to write up, which is worth 8 credits. So together, both tracks will end up with 36 credits, okay? So, and here's just a look at some of the courses that will be a sort of an overview, panoramic overview of some of the courses that will be offered in that social cultural module. That can also be courses that will be offered as electives. So sport and development, for anybody who's interested in sports. Youth and childhood in African context, one of the most pressing issues in African societies today. Of course, all the challenges and dilemmas that youth are facing. A course in Black critical theory, which will be more look at Black critical thought, Black studies from both Africa and in the diaspora. There'll be a course in global health, which is an intensive course offered in the month of July that will be looking at global health from the perspective of is the Israeli healthcare system. There'll be a class in liberation theology for those that are more interested in looking at how religion has served as an important inspiration for social and cultural and political change. There'll be a course in sustainability in cities, and maybe, and then another course, social analysis of environmental issues. Okay, this is just an overview to give you a sense of the kind of electives that there'll be, and people can have a choice to choose from. But again, this list is not set yet. We're still developing it, and the course catalog will be available within 2 weeks, hopefully. So a specific course catalog. Okay, so the third semester, what's going to happen during that third semester? So after studying a whole year together at Ben-Gurion University, people will then go for their project that they've been working on the whole year in a project workshop. They've been working and planning and writing a literature review and a project proposal. And in that third semester, sometime our school year ends in June, and people will start heading back to their home communities, wherever they might be in over the course of July. And then sometime between September and January, people will spend 3 months working on their project, wherever that is. And that will be in coordination with our staff, guiding and helping and addressing any concerns you might have, offering support along the way, obviously, to all those projects as they're going on. And at the end, as I said, and what kind of projects, it could really be in a whole range of different things. Some people might be interested in access to clean water. Others might be interested in health education in a school system. Others might be interested in women's empowerment. Others might be interested in entrepreneurial training in a community. Others might be looking at the development of a cultural center. Others might be looking, there's a whole range of various options that are available for that. And again, that is something that will be planned for and worked on throughout the year while people are at BGU. So which track is right for you? Well, those that are interested in working on a thesis and really enjoy research and writing and looking at that they've completed their project or their field work, and they're really looking at engaging and really digging in and engaging with whatever their experiences were on an academic level, maybe working on a thesis that will eventually turn into an academic article. They're interested in publishing and getting their knowledge out there to the general public. That would be people that are interested in the research track. Students that are considering going on to a PhD would be advised to be in the thesis track as well, because oftentimes PhD studies require a master's thesis. Those in the applied track say that, okay, I have a lot of professional experience. I'm coming to enrich my professional life. And I already have a very practical field that I'm working in, or something I have plans that I really know already what it is I'm going to be doing and planning for. And it's really much more practical. I'm not really the type that wants to work on a big thesis by myself, in the solitude of writing in academia. So those people would be more directed to the applied track. That would be more for them, okay? So the lecturers in our program are, trust me, they're just all top-notch scholars. They're dedicated, lively, committed, and very approachable faculty who see teaching as a mission and as a privilege, and look at the opportunity to take part in this program as a huge bonus. I know for a fact that every single one of the professors that are going to be teaching in the program are really looking forward, and they're hoping to bring their internationally acclaimed scholarship to the program that will really bring together so many different voices and so many different viewpoints and experiences that, I mean, we're all sure that it'll be just as interesting for us as it will be for all of our students. So we're super looking forward to the opportunity. For anybody who doesn't know, Ben-Gurion University has earned an international reputation in research and teaching. In African studies specifically, but not just in African studies, in many of the fields that will be relevant for our degree program. And the bonus is having the Tamar Golan Africa Center there, which is a center that doesn't just look at academia in a very sort of like nuts and bolts publications kind of way. The Tamar Golan Africa Center offers a huge range of programming that tries to bring Africa to Ben-Gurion University in all of its complexity and all of its rich sort of experiences and cultures. So we do symposiums and international conferences. We have a Afro cinema film series that we do every year. Our students are engaged in field trips. We have a lot of activism going on with local African communities in Israel, be it local communities from Ethiopia or asylum seekers and refugees in Israel. We're also very connected to the broader group of African students that are studying at the university in engineering or desert studies. So we actually create a big community of people that are in all different ways engaged with the continent of Africa. And we try and create an atmosphere that is a community that really borders on sort of like a big family. We try and really foster a holistic view of our students and try and respond to their social needs also, and seeing and enjoying academia, not just for inside the classroom, but for more informal engagements as well. We're a rare program because there are no other graduate student programs in African studies in Israel. Specifically one that looks at sustainable development. There are other programs in Israel that look at sustainable development and have practical stints in their program, but none of them combine the view that we have of looking at a specific cultural and historical political context. So Ben-Gurion University is really known for a student body that's engaged, and it's engaged in activism and social change and political critique, and it's a place of critical thinking that is translated into action in the community. And it's something that our university very much prides itself on. So why study African studies or African sustainable community development in Israel? Well, actually, Israel and Africa have a very long history of shared destiny when it comes to trying to plan for the future in a way that is both sustainable and successful in addressing community needs. Way back at the time before the October 1973 war, before relations were cut between Israel and much of the continent of Africa, there was a sort of a belief and a commitment to shared destiny between Israel and Africa, and a belief that Israel had much to offer Africa. But as somebody who studies these relations in the 60s, I can tell you that Africa has much to offer Israel as well, and that it's a definitely mutually constructive and mutually beneficial relationship. And our program tries to build upon that vision of relations, that it's not a one-way thing, that it's a two-way exchange between Israel and various countries and communities and individuals from the continent. And Israel has actually, learned a thing or two in the world of sustainable development. I think we still have a lot of work to do in the area, and we still have a lot of learning to do as well. And I think that these sort of experiences are brought to the table in our program. And I also know that in terms of historical, cultural, and religious connections, that there's a lot of shared interest between Israel and countries and communities in Africa. So we think we're a great place to study these things. Okay, so let's get down to the more practical questions that a lot of people might have about the program. So there's, what are the costs of the program? And after I review the costs, I'll review the scholarships, okay? Since I know people are also undoubtedly interested in that as well. So to begin, the first expense that someone will have is a registration fee, okay? Everybody, in order for us to consider your application, will have to pay a $25 initial registration fee, okay? That is paid directly on the registration, in the registration website at the university. And only after one is accepted to the program and ready to go do they pay the $75 supplementary acceptance registration fee, which tops it off to $100, which is what people pay to register for the university. The tuition for our program is approximately $10,000 for the entire degree. Dorms at Ben-Gurion University, which are, very modern, well-equipped, and in many cases new or newly renovated. The dorms, which are very close to campus, right across the street. So the dorms are approximately $450 a month. And then beyond that, living costs. I mean, this is a little bit hard to say what exactly somebody needs, but if we're just talking about feeding somebody, eating, our estimate is approximately $600 to $700 monthly as a minimum, but that's, again, very individual, and it doesn't include somebody that wants to travel every weekend all over Israel. It doesn't include those expenses, but it kind of gives a rough estimate of just sort of an individual needing to, eat over the course of a month in Beersheba, considering that they have a dorm that doesn't include living expenses, which also the dorm fee also includes electricity and internet and all that. Health insurance. This is something that every student has to have before coming to Israel. The health insurance that we are hoping that everyone will get will be $850. It will include access to Israel's health system, and also including vaccines for corona, for those that won't have any. So it's really recommended to use that health insurance program. A visa to Israel, which is approximately $50. And then that third semester project back in Africa, we're assuming that students will need approximately $3,500, which would be a plane ticket, and then another sum of money for monthly living for 3 months, okay? Again, that's also kind of individual and depends on where you're going in Africa, what your resident needs are. Somebody's giving you a place to stay, they're not giving you a place to stay. So it kind of depends. It's a very rough estimate, so it's hard to exactly know about that specific sum. So scholarships. We have full and partial scholarships that are based on academic merit and financial needs. So the scholarships that we have, a full scholarship includes tuition, dorms, a living stipend, the third semester in Africa, and travel to and from Israel if you're coming from Africa. So that is what a full scholarship entails. We have some full scholarships, and they're available. But even with this full scholarship, which would include a monthly stipend of about $200, $300 a month, students will still need to supplement somewhat for living fees. So $200, $300 a month would not be enough to live. So as I said, if our rough estimate is $600, $700 a month, so students will have to bring another couple of $100 a month minimum to live. It's not possible on the student visa to work in Israel, according to Israeli Minister of Interior. So before coming though, those are monthly expenses that you wouldn't actually need right up front, but right up front, you would need to get health insurance and pay for the visa, okay? So those are expenses that you would have to actually meet before coming, the health insurance and the visa. And the other expenses are monthly expenses that would be necessary along the way. So how do you apply for the program? There's an online registration form, and Noga and Shachar from the Africa Center can put that into the chat, how you log on to, so I see like a lot of your names are actually familiar to me. So I see that a lot of you have actually applied already. Along with that, we'll need an official copy of your academic transcripts and diploma. The copy of your passport, the first page of your passport, CV, curriculum vitae, 2 letters of recommendation, at least one of which comes from an academic faculty member who's worked with you and can testify to your academic credentials and capabilities. And then there's 2 essays online, one that engages more with the issue of development, sustainable development, successful community development, and tries to have us get a sense of your viewpoint on these things. If you right now are going to offer us sort of your perspective and your viewpoint on sustainable development, we'd like to know kind of where you're coming from in that first essay. And the second one is a real personal statement, just letting us get to know you a little better, letting us try and understand why it is that you're a good fit for our program. That's more of a personal statement about sort of how we get to know you. So once all those documents are submitted by May 31st, that's for students coming from outside of Israel. Israeli students have a little bit more leeway for applying there. There's a little bit less of a deadline because the Israeli students don't need the visa and already have health insurance, and also there's no issue of trying to prepare for travel and all those things. So those coming from outside of Israel need to apply by May 31st, and Israelis that might be here in the chat have a little more leeway. So the acceptance process is that once you submit the documents, we'll review them after you've paid the fee, and then we will invite prospective candidates to a Zoom meeting. And the goal of the Zoom meeting is really just to get to know you a little better, also to assess everyone's English a bit, because we're not asking people to do a TOEFL exam. We're not asking people to spend money or time or resources on that. So this Zoom meeting will help us also assess a little bit who you are, where you're coming from, and also save everyone that extra hassle of the TOEFL exam. After you're accepted, you'll have to pay that deposit. Like I said, the extra $75, arrange for a student visa, arrange for healthcare. And then we can begin helping people that are getting the full scholarship, book plane tickets and dorms and all those kinds of things. So this is that's May 31st will help us. We're hoping that by the end of June, we'll be able to notify people whether or not they've been accepted. That's our goal, and hopefully we'll be able to meet that goal. So the final slide is about the unbeloved corona pandemic that has derailed many of our lives and plans for the last year and a half. So unfortunately, we're assuming that corona will still be with us by October. And so what we're asking right now is for all prospective candidates to realize that there's a certain element of planning for the program that has to be a bit flexible, because we don't actually know what the government will demand at that time, but we're assuming that there'll still be a quarantine period for international students. And so we're assuming that the students that are coming to our program will have to come 12 days before the program begins in order to have a mandatory quarantine on campus. We will be planning and hoping to vaccinate anyone who is not vaccinated. According to Israeli law, people that are vaccinated that conduct 2 corona tests that are both come out negative, and at this point, they then can get out of the mandatory quarantine. That might change for better or worse in October. We just don't know. So we're just saying that everyone who's going to be joining the program needs to stay tuned and aware of the fact that the specific protocols regarding corona will hopefully become clear to us over the course of the summer. And as soon as we know, we'll let you know. As soon as we know, we'll let you know. But right now, we just, this is the situation of the pandemic and what's happening. So for more information, you can write us at africama@bgu.ac.il. This is our second webinar. We are going to, we're thinking about offering another bunch of webinars if there's more interest in June, and general webinars. And then we're actually hoping to also do a webinar that's specifically targeting the issue of financial aid for the program more towards the middle of June. Okay, so we'll let all of you know about that, all those that applied, and we'll also update you about anything else that we've, any other kind of online events that we're conducting between now and May 31st. So that's basically all that I had right now in terms of the presentation. So I want to thank everybody for taking part in the second webinar. I want to encourage everybody to be in touch with us. This is not the end of the opportunity where you can write to us and contact us and ask us questions. We're happy to answer any questions that come up along the way. And we encourage everyone to try and get in all their materials as quickly as possible, but also as comprehensively as possible, so that there's no delay in processing, or there's no disqualification of somebody's application because they just never sent us in all the materials. Okay, so just be in touch with us. Thank you so much for taking part, and I would just encourage you all to be in touch with us directly after the webinar is over, and let us know if anything else comes up.